Legend of Swordsman Chapter 1, Sword. The Emperor Tianzong dynasty was in Jianhou House, Bahui County, Jianshu Province. Menger, your sword can be faster and sharper. Yes, this sword is much better. The beautiful young girl Jianmeng, dressed in snow-white clothes, concentrated on practicing a sword technique in the courtyard. The sword technique is extremely fast, and he pointed at him, but a young boy in black next to the sword. Judging from the age, both of them should be 15 or 16 years old, but Jian Wushuang can very badly point out some of the shortcomings of Jianmeng's sword art. After a sword practice exercise was completed, Jianmeng gathered the sword and stood with a smile toward the sword unparalleled. "Brother Wushuang, how do you think of my sword practice?" Jianmeng asked. "Aurora swordsmanship is about speed. It is a great achievement to be able to practice this sword art completely in 40 breaths. You have just practiced the Aurora swordsmanship in only 38 breaths, which is very good." Jian Wushuang said. "This is the best brother of Wushuang you teach, otherwise I will never master this sword in Deshang in just 2 months. Jianmeng said. Wu Jianshou but shook his head secretly. He knew that although he taught it well, the bigger reason was that Jian Menger had a great talent in swordsmanship. If he studied swordsmanship-based Jianhou Mansion, he would be more talented than Kendo. The most talented person is Jianmeng. Brother Wushuang, if you cast this Aurora swordsmanship, how many breathing times can you use to fully exhibit this swordsmanship? Can it be within 30 breaths? Jianmeng suddenly asked. 30 breaths. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly and didn't speak. Aurora swordsmanship. After 40 breathing exercises, he can be regarded as a master. If he goes all out, he will complete the Aurora swordsmanship and it only takes 23 breathing time. This level has already reached its peak. With Brother Wushuang's talent in swordsmanship, you definitely don't need 30 breaths, but unfortunately. Jian Menger looked at Jian Wushuang's eyes a little differently. Of course Wu Jianshuang knew what she was talking about and couldn't help laughing. Relax, come on, I will soon be a warrior. Coming soon. Jian Menger didn't take it for granted, after all, he said so 4 years ago. Jian Wushuang, a disciple of Jianhufu's direct line of blood, his father, who was once the owner of Jianga Pavilion, or Jianhufu's recognized first power, grew up under the guidance of his father. His father is so destined that he was born to be extremely prominent. In Jianhou Mansion, he is definitely one of the most prominent among the younger generation of disciples. However, all this happened 4 years ago, when he was 12 years old. Encountered drastic changes. In that year, his father went out, but after that he had no news and nowhere to be found. It's not only a scourge, but that year also happened to be the crucial stage when he started to condense spiritual power and march toward the martial arts. However, when he tried to condense aura, he found that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't condense even a trace of spiritual power. I cannot condense my spiritual power, which is a nightmare for any warrior. Notice, martial arts all the way. Absorb the aura of heaven and earth, condense their own spiritual power, and be a martial artist. For a warrior, his own spiritual power is fundamental. A person who cannot consolidate spiritual power is destined to never become a warrior in his life. Such a person is a kind of despised waste in Jianhufu, where the strength is respected. In the past 4 years, Jian Wushuang has never really given up. He has been working hard and always wanted to be a real warrior. Even one day, he could inherit his father's position and regain control of the sword pavilion, but it was very cruel. However, although Jian Wushuang cannot gather spiritual power, his talent in swordsmanship is truly shocking. He has been practicing swordplay with his father since he was a child, because his father is the owner of the sword pavilion, and his kendo talent is also called evil. Many swordsmanship is taught only once, and he will be able to remember and get through quickly, so don't look at his young age, but on swordplay alone, few people in the entire Jianhou Mansion can really match him. But no matter how talented swordsmanship is and how strong swordsmanship is, there is no spiritual trend and not much use. This time is really fast. Jian Wushuang is full of self-confidence. Okay. Jian Menger smiled, not seriously. Menger, Wushuang. A middle-aged man came out of the courtyard and walked in. This middle-aged man looked very kind. Father, Jian Meng shouted. Lanbua. Jian Wushuang even shouted. This middle-aged man is the father of Jian Meng, the elder Jianlan in the vein of Zuwutang of Jianho House. Wushuang, taught swordplay for a day, you worked hard. Jianlan said with a smile. Don't worry. Jian Wushuang shook his head and said, Lanbua, it's getting late, I'll go back first. Okay. Jianlan and Jian Menger watched Jian Wushuang leave. But after Jian Wushuang disappeared within their sight, Jianlan's original gentle eyes converged. Menger, what's wrong? Jianlan asked, his voice low. Aurora swordsmanship, I have mastered Deshang. Jian Menger looked completely. It's great. Jianlan clenched his hands and an ecstasy expression appeared on his face. It's been almost 4 years. You are with this boy every day and let him teach you swordplay. After 4 years of grievances, it finally paid off. You have mastered all of the 18 first-class swordsmanships of the Sword Pavilion, and now it is time to implement our plan. Father, are you sure we want to do this? Jian Menger frowned, but his eyes remained cold and showed no mercy. Those who make things happen, don't stick to the bar. Jianlan looked coldly. Everything depends on tomorrow. Wu Jianshou returned to the courtyard where he lived. After a brief meal, he sat down on his bed with his knees crossed. I told Menger today that she could soon become a true warrior, she didn't even believe it. Jian Wushuang smiled, but his right hand involuntarily stroked towards his lower abdomen. In his abdomen, there was a grey fist-sized stone bead lying there, which had existed in Jian Wushuang since he was born, and has been a mystery. However, this grey stone bead is the culprit that caused Jian Wushuang to fail to become a warrior. Everyone only knows that his sword Wushuang is a waste that cannot be condensed out even a trace of spiritual power, but in fact only he knows that he is not unable to consolidate spiritual power. On the contrary, his 108 meridians are all over his body. It all got through, and it was very easy to gather the spiritual power. Every time he practiced, the heaven and earth aura he absorbed in his body did not have a chance to condense and transform into his own spiritual power, and was swallowed up ruthlessly by the grey stone in his belly. In other words, every time he cultivates the heaven and earth aura absorbed from the outside world, he becomes the food of this grey stone bead. With the engulfing of the grey stone bead, Jian Wushuang also found that this grey stone bead is not without limit, but is equivalent to a container. For the past 4 years, he has insisted on cultivating every day and insisting on absorbing the outside world's aura. He just wanted to feed the grey stone beads thoroughly as soon as possible. As long as he feeds them www.mtlnovel.com the grey stone beads no longer eat him the aura of heaven and earth ingested, then he can naturally condense his spiritual power to become a warrior. Yesterday he found that the grey stone beads have reached the saturation state, and it only takes 1 day to cultivate, that is, today, the grey stone beads will reach the true limit and he will condense the spiritual power again. Let's get started. Jian Wushuang looked forward to it, and began daily practice immediately. As expected, the grey stone beads in his body were still ruthlessly devouring the heaven and earth aura he had taken in from the outside, but with the gradual swallowing, the grey stone beads finally reached the limit of bearing. Humming. The grey stone beads suddenly began to spin in his body, and the speed of rotation was getting faster and faster. With the rotation, the volume of the grey stone beads gradually became smaller with the speed visible to the naked eye. Only a moment's effort, this grey stone bead that has always existed in Jian Wushuang's body disappeared completely. No, this bead disappeared. Jian Wushuang flashed a little ecstasy in his eyes, but the next moment Jian Wushuang stared suddenly. An immense amount of information came directly into his mind without any warning. Dadian fortune. Capture the heavens and the earth, build supreme skill. P.S. The new book starts, for the time being, 3 changes a day, 12:01 a.m., and 2 chapters are updated at 8 p.m. at the same time. The new book period immediately erupts, and the update speed is maintained at 4 or 5 a day. In addition, I3 works such as I Am a Rebirth have been completed normally, and the character and reputation are guaranteed. The guarantee is never changed, never delayed, never too jailed, and never bad. At the same time, the number of words at the end of this book will be in more than 4 million words, please rest assured to read and follow. Legend of Swordsman Chapter 2, Dominate the Heavens and Earth, Build Supreme Skill. Dadian Fortune. Capture the heavens and the earth, build supreme skill. Wu Jianshuang opened his eyes, but his eyes were stunned. Gongfa. In my mind, there is one more Gongfa. Jian Wushuang was surprised at first, but the next moment I realized that the reason for this Gongfa in my mind should be the relationship between the gray stone beads. Jian Wushuang is not unfamiliar with practicing exercises. In Jianhou Mansion, as long as a disciple who has cultivated spiritual power can go to the practice hall to choose a suitable practice method. However, there are tens of thousands of exercises in this world, but he has never heard of such a practice that dares to claim to be a heaven and earth creation like the Tian Zhihua Ji. This gray stone bead has been hidden in my body, and it has devoured all the spiritual power that I have accumulated over the past 4 years. It is so unique. Now the gray stone bead is dissipated, but it leaves me a practice method. This door Gongfa is definitely extraordinary. Jian Wushuang immediately looked at the practice of Daishan Huaji. As you martial arts, you have been competing with heaven and earth for luck and fortune, and the heavens and fortunes have been divided into the 9 levels of Shinto, the ultimate spiritual sea, Supreme Jindan, cut off the yin and yang, honored the Supreme Master, and went straight to Joxiao. Realms are contrary to common sense. Enter the martial arts with Datian's fortune-making tactics. From the moment you entered the martial arts, you have gone against the sky, step by step against the sky, step by step. Anyone who is against the sky is a natural enemy and also a contrarian. With a few simple words, Jian Wushuang completely wiped out. Going against the sky. Going against it. Qi Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and calmed down his mind slowly. Although it was just a brief introduction, Jian Wushuang still saw the extraordinariness of this method. Note, in the swordsmanship and even in the cognition of all warriors in the entire world, martial arts all started with spirituality. The 7 realms of spiritual Tao, the spiritual power of the sea, the construction of Jin Dan, the yin and yang virtual realm, and then the legendary transcendental sanctification. This is the martial arts realm known by Jian Wushuang. It's very different from the realm he knows. Guang is an introduction, one is the 7-fold realm of the spiritual Tao, and the other is the 9-fold heavenly Shinto. One has only 7 layers of small realms, and the other is full of 9 small realms. This is totally against the common sense of cultivation. The division of realm violates the common sense of heaven, and it is no wonder that the practitioners who practice this technique are destined to go against the sky. This is a real step against the sky. As soon as you practice this technique, you do it against the sky, reverse practice. Wu Jian Wushuang sat on the bed, but at the moment was very complicated. There was shock and fear, and there was a hint of excitement in the heart of the same sword Wushuang. It turned out to be such an anti-sky exercise method hidden in the gray stone beads. How to do? The inverse sky exercises are in front of me, practice or not practice. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, but this hesitation only lasted for a moment, and Jian Wushuang had already decided. What about reverse cultivation? As Datian Zhaohua said, as long as martial arts travel, the world and the heavens and the earth seize the air, and the warriors are not tolerated by heaven and earth. In this case, why not go against the sky? Jian Wushuang really couldn't find any reason to keep himself from practicing this great heavenly fortune, let alone he was tortured by that gray stone bead for 4 years, and now this gray stone bead has finally compensated him for such an inverse skill. If he doesn't practice, wouldn't he be sorry for the grievances he has suffered in the past 4 years? He no longer hesitated, even though Jian Wushuang began to cultivate in accordance with Datian's method of transformation. The vast aura of heaven and earth is still flowing into Jian Wushuang's body continuously, and the 108 swords and veins of Jian Wushuang are absorbed in a frantic way, and it moves in a unique trajectory in his body. After a big Sunday, these heaven and earth aura will eventually Zhao Tian's matchless Dantian gathered away. Overnight. In the early morning, the day is not yet full. Sitting on the bed and practicing for a long night, Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes and looked at the palm of his right hand. A feint of spirit emerged, and Jian Wushuang's eyes could not help flashing a fine light. Shinto is so heavy. Over night's cultivation, he not only condensed his first trace of spiritual power, but he now has a small amount of spiritual power in Dantian. According to martial arts cultivation, as long as the spiritual power is condensed, even if it is only a trace, can already be regarded as a real warrior. It's extraordinary. In just one night of cultivation, I have accumulated so much spiritual power in my body. The speed of this cultivation is not faster than the many cultivation methods in my Jianhou mansion, and I feel that I can burst out at this moment. Power seems to be stronger than those of the spiritual path in Jianhou house. Wu Jianshou shook his arm and felt his strength at the moment. Shinto's heavy heaven is equivalent to the spiritual martial arts realm of normal martial arts. However, there is obviously a gap in strength. The sword unparalleled in the cultivation of the great heaven's secret, after reaching the Shinto heavy heaven, the power burst is obviously higher than that of the spiritual Tao. The warrior is stronger. I want to know that Datian created the tactics to get started, but the Shinto 9 heaven is full of 9 small realms. My strength is now stronger than the ordinary spiritual Taoism. Doesn't it mean that when I reach the 7th heaven of the Shinto, I can easily crush the peak of the 7th heaven? Isn't the power burst stronger than those who are spiritualized at the sea level? Jian Wu's eyes flashed with horror. Terrible. Datian's fortune, it's too powerful. Not only does the practice speed be much faster than the ordinary methods, the most important thing is that it is step by step. Every realm can violate the common sense of heaven. In addition, in this martial art, there is also a secret technique. Soul secret technique. Jian Wushuang secretly thought, Spiritual Secrets www.ntlnovel.com is an extremely overbearing and extremely invincible mystery. Is not so much a secret technique, it is better to call it a forbidden technique, one that hurts an enemy 1000 and damages 800. In short, I just saw some introductions to this mystery. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but feel faint in his heart. He is not planning to practice this mystery now, wait for his decisive time to wait for his cultivation to improve, and then slowly study. Musha. I have no sword, I finally become a real warrior. Wu Jianshou was screaming and roaring in madness for 4 years and suffered humiliation. Now he finally condenses his spiritual power and becomes a warrior, which makes him even want to scream. He is a sword unparalleled, a sword in hand, the world unparalleled. He is no waste. After a brief wash, Jian Wushuang immediately went out. He can't wait to tell Jianmeng the news of himself becoming a warrior, he wants to surprise Jianmeng. Menger, I told you that I will definitely be a warrior. Not only that, I will also become strong in the future. Like my father, I will become the strongest in Jianhou house, holding 3 killing swords, in charge of Jiang'e. Jian Wushuang looked forward. 24 years ago, since his father had no news, he has made up his mind. Become strong, inherit his father's position, and take charge of the sword court. This is his oldest and biggest wish. Before he could not even condense his spiritual power, he was naturally very far away from this wish, but now it is different. Have you heard? Just now, the elder Jianlong of the Blood Wutang united the whole Blood Wutang and made a request to the house owner to let his daughter Jianmeng become the master of the sword pavilion and take charge of the sword pavilion. Wu Jian's unparalleled pace immediately meal. Legend of Swordsman Chapter 3, A Bolt from the Blue. Lanhua united with the Blood Wutang, and asked the house owner to let Menger become the owner of the Jiang'e Pavilion and take charge of the Jiang'e Pavilion? What's a joke? Jian Wushuang smiled, but he didn't take it seriously. You know, for the past 4 years, he has been with Jianmeng almost every day, and Jianlan has always been very gentle and very caring, and the relationship between them is very good. Jian Wushuang even regarded their father and daughter as his loved ones. In front of them, he said nothing. So both Jianlan and Jianmeng are very clear that his biggest wish is to take charge of Jiang'e. Moreover, the owner of the Jiang'e Pavilion has always been selected within the Jiang'e, and Jianmeng, like his father, belongs to the Blood Wutang. In Jianhou Mansion, Jiang'e and Zuwutang belong to the 2 most powerful factions. The earliest sword Hofu was mainly devoted to the study of swordsmanship. This can be seen from the fact that all peoples use the sword as their surname, but as the latter Hofu slowly became strong and developed, some people were doing swordsmanship. The talents are not high, but they can have very high talents on other weapons, which naturally spawned the Hofu children who studied other weapons. These children gradually developed more and more. In the end, Shui Wu Tang was spawned. The two major factions coexisted in Hofu. Although they have not really torn their faces, there are often some contests in the secret. The two sides are almost the same. Jian Menjie is the elder daughter of Shui Wu Tang. She is the heir to Shui Wu Tang. How could she be in charge of Jianghe? Wu Jianchuang thought that the person who had just been sent was just joking and didn't care about it, but he hadn't taken 2 steps just now, and there was a rumor immediately surrounding him. I have also heard that Shui Wu Tang, headed by Jian Lan, and even some alchemists from Danfang, have come forward and proposed that the house owner agree to Jian Meng'er in charge of Jiangu. Although the people in Jiangu strongly opposed it, since after the disappearance of Jian Nange's owner Jian Nantian years ago, Jiangu's right to speak in Ho's government has long been inferior, and their opposition is useless at last. In the end, the governor was helpless and promised that as long as the sword dreamer could reach the title of the Jiangu pavilion conditions, let her take charge of Jianghe. What are the requirements for becoming the owner of the sword pavilion? What are they? The owner of the Jianghe pavilion is second only to the owner of the Jianhou mansion and has a very high status. It is naturally not so simple to become the owner of the Jianghe pavilion. Therefore, the Jianghe has always required the bottom line of the Jianghe pavilion. First of all, if you want to become the master of the sword pavilion, you must have a high degree of accomplishment in the kendo. The 18 first-class sword techniques in the sword pavilion must be all proficient. First-class swordsmanship. 18. I was surprised around. In Jianhou Mansion, most of the ordinary disciples can practice only some third or second-class swordsmanship. As for the first-class swordsmanship, only the most core and elite talented disciples are eligible to practice. In today's Jianghe, they are eligible. There will never be more than 10 disciples practicing first-class swordsmanship, and they can only practice at most 2 first-class swordsmanship. As for the 18 first-class swordsmanship, even the core disciples in Jianghe are not qualified to contact all, let alone a disciple of Shui Wu Tang. That sword dream, it is impossible to achieve this condition. Someone affirmed. No, Jian Menjie has arrived. Today, she practiced the 18 first-class swordsmanships of the sword court one by one, in front of the house owner and in front of many elders of the sword court. Not only that, the 18 swordsmanship, she has mastered everything. What? How can that be? Where did sword dream come from? I was shocked. And the sword Wushuang who had been standing by the side, stunned. The 18 first-class swordsmanships of Jianjian Pavilion? Isn't that what he taught to Jian Meng? 4 years ago, because of his father's disappearance, he was unable to consolidate his spiritual strength. It was Jian Meng who helped him out of the depression. He has been grateful for Jian Meng, so for the past 4 years, he has been Sword Menjie is together. Sword Menjie has a good talent on the kendo and he loves to practice swords. Unfortunately, there is not much real sword skill in Zuwutang. At the time, Jian Wushuang was only 12 or 3 years old, and had no intention at all. After seeing everything in his eyes, he began to point out Jian Menjie's sword operation. Later, he taught her something without hesitation. Swordplay of the sword court. In the next 4 years, he taught the 18 first-class swordsmanships of Jianghe to Jian Meng. But today, with the 18 first-class swordsmanships he teaches, Jian Meng is actually in charge of Jianghe. He is in charge of Jianghe. Is that his biggest wish? No, it's impossible. How did Menjie do this? Jian Wushuang shook his head again and again, still unwilling to believe it. In order to take charge of the Jianghe, in addition to the 18 first-class sword skills of the Jianghe, you must have good strength. The minimum strength requirement of the Jianghe for the master is to fight one by one with the 4 elders of the Jianghe, and in my hands, you can go through 20 moves, and Jian Meng has done it. Impossible. I know the strength of the 4 elders of the Jianghe. The 4 of them have long been spiritualized. Among them, the oldest Hong Hong, it is said that he has reached the completion of the Hua Hai, only a step away from Jin Dan. How can Jian Meng make it through his 20 moves? All of us have despised the sword dream. She has always been very low-key in Ho's house, and she has never shown her strength at all, but today when she played against the 4 elders of Jiang'e, she showed shock to everyone. She has spiritualized the sea, and it is not just the spiritual sea that has just been transformed into the sea, but also the great sea, and the sea is complete. Jiang Menjie, Hua Hai de Shang. Is she only 16 this year? How is this possible? Not only was the few disciples who were talking about shocked and speechless, but even Jian Wushuang was completely stunned. Menjie she. Hua Hai de Shang. Jian Wushuang's face was incredible. Although he has been staying with Jian Menjie for the past 4 years, Jian Menjie has not really revealed his strength in front of him, and Jian Wushuang did not think much about it, only thinking that Jian Menjie is like other disciples of Hofu. Now it is estimated that it is like the 5th heaven or the 6th heaven of the spiritual Tao. As for the spiritual power of the sea, he never imagined it. www.mtlnovel.com, let alone the Sea of Fate. 16 years old, Hua Hai de Shang. This has never happened in the hundreds of years of Jianhou Mansion. Jiang Meng is so dazzling. It is definitely a super genius that I have never seen in Jianhou House for hundreds of years. In addition, she is also proficient in the 18 first-class swordsmanships of Jiang'e. 20 strokes, so the governor agreed on the spot, let Jian Meng be the master of the sword court, and take charge of the sword court. 2 months later, the annual sword warrior battle of Jianhou Mansion will be held. At that time, Jian Meng will play, and prove his shocking talent strength in front of all the strong men in Pahui County. After that, he will take over as the owner of the Jiang'e Pavilion under the witness of everyone. Impressive. 16-year-old Hua Hai de Shang, oh, this sword dream, it's amazing. Everyone was amazed, but the sword on the side was unparalleled, but his face had become completely white. Menjie has reached Hua Hai de Shang. 2 months later, he will take over the position of Jiang'e Pavilion. Impossible. Impossible, I never believe it. Wu Jianshou clenched his hands tightly and ran away towards the courtyard where Jian Menjie lived, but at this moment his heart was roaring wildly. He doesn't believe it, it's true. Just know that Jiang'e is the Jiang'e of Jiang'e disciples. It was his father's sword pavilion, and it was also his sword pavilion. He will always remember what his father once said, and Jiang'e can only be controlled by his disciples. It is his greatest wish to take charge of Jiang'e. How can his wish be fulfilled by others? P.S. The new book just opened, 3 changes a day, there is an outbreak. Favorite friends can bookmark and vote for more, thank you. Legend of Swordsman Chapter 4, Bloody Vow. Wu Jianchuang came to the courtyard where he practiced swordsmanship with Jian Meng on weekdays. If it was usual, Jian Menjie would have been waiting here long ago, but today, when Jian Wushuang came to this courtyard, he did not find the existence of Jian Menjie. Only a black robe with his hands on his back was waiting quietly, holding his sword. Qi Jian Wushuang's heart immediately raised a bad hunch. Lanbua. Jian Wushuang still shouted as usual. You're here. Jian Lan turned around, there was no gentleness on her face, and some were just a look of majesty and coldness. You should know what you want to do. Just today, the house owner appointed Menjie as the sword pavilion after the battle of the new cabinet master, Jian Holing held a succession ceremony, and the token representing the identity of the sword club master should be on you. Jian Sword Wushuang Yi. The token representing the owner of Jiang'e Pavilion is Jianhofu's first killing sword and 3 killing swords. The 3 killing swords were brought back by his father shortly after his father went out. He has kept them for the past 4 years, that is, the long sword that he carried on his back. Give it up. Jian Lan said. Wu Jianchuang trembled physically and mentally, gritted his teeth tightly, looked at Jian Lan, and sank, I want to see Menjie. What is the status of Menjie, and can you see it when you say it? Jian Lan Lengheng. I will never give up the 3 killing swords without seeing Menjie. Jian Wushuang said firmly. Even at this moment, he still has a little hope in his heart, expecting that all of this is just because of the relationship between Jian Lan and Jian Menjie. Presumptuous. Jian Lan groaned, just about to get angry. Father. The beautiful young girl Jianmeng, dressed in snow-white clothes, came slowly from the house. Menger. Jian Wushuang even looked at it, but it was only the first glance. The only hope in Jian Wushuang's heart instantly disappeared. He noting the depth of Jian Menger's eyes. Cold, that unfeeling. Wu Jianshuang suddenly understood that what happened today, Jian Menger was not compelled. You have been lying to me? Jian Wushuang asked, staring at Jian Menger. Fool you? No. Jian Menger shook his head. I never promised you anything, and even if you taught me to practice swords, although I asked you to teach, I never forced you. You and me, this is a bargain. I have been with you for 4 years, and it is fair to teach me swordplay. Is that a deal? Jian Wushuang grinned and asked, You should know that the 3 killing swords were brought back by my father after my father went out for a tour, and that may be the only clue for me to find where my father is going to be. I know. Jianmeng nodded. You also know that my greatest wish in my life is to be able to replace my father's heavy palms with a 3-slave sword one day. Jian Wushuang continued to ask. I also know. Jian Menger nodded again, but wishing to return to the wish, for you, this wish will not be realized in a lifetime. After all, you are a waste that can't even condense spiritual power. Is it a waste? Jian Wushuang couldn't help but laugh at himself. Just this morning, he practiced Datian's fortune, and finally condensed spiritual power to become a real warrior, and he wanted to share it with Jianmeng for the first time, but who had thought that in the eyes of the latter, is he just a waste? A poor worm that can't even gather spiritual power. The sword is unparalleled, and you have no more entanglement. The more entangled it will only make you weaker. If you are not willing, then use your strength to challenge me honestly. In this world, everything depends on with your fist talking. You are weak, you have been used and deceived, and who are you to blame? Jian Menger said indifferently. Is that so? In the final analysis, am I still too weak? Jian Wushuang smiled faintly, and the ridiculous look was extremely horrible. It turns out that I have always been a fool. Huh, stupid. Stupid can. I am the biggest fool in the world. It is ridiculous. Wu Jianso growled, his expressions were almost insane. Wu Jianlan and Jianmeng looked silently beside, but there was no mercy in their eyes. Just now, although ruthless, it is true. This world, this is weak and strong food. Jian Wushuang laughed tragically, and at the same time, his entire mind seemed to be overwhelmed by billions of thunders at the same time. His face had been distorted, his eyes were more complicated, and it was incredible at first. It was almost a loss, and then it was furious, even almost crazy. After only a moment of effort, Jian Wushuang's laughter came to an end, and when he looked up again, his eyes gradually returned to plainness. Jian Lan and Jian Menger both noticed the changes of Kung Fu in this moment, both were quite surprised. They don't know, in this short moment of effort, what a tremendous change has taken place in Jian Wushuang's heart. The original innocence and simpleness of Sun had disappeared at this moment. In this short moment, Jian Wushuang seemed to have gone through decades of vicissitudes. Taking a deep breath, Jian Wushuang re-looked at Jian Menger, and there was no trace of tenderness in his eyes. Some were just the chill that was so cold to the bone marrow. At the moment, Jian Menger, who was stared by Jian Wushuang, couldn't help it. Tremble. How cold is this look? The tadpole stared at its prey as if it were a snake. Jiang Menger, you are right. Only the weak will pretend to be pitiful and win the sympathy of others, and the strong will all speak by strength. In this case, Jian Wushuang's voice was cold, and 3 killing swords came out from behind, accompanied by a trace of Jianming. Ha! The sharp blade of the sword suddenly drew a blood hole on the palm of the sword without hands. The palm stained with blood suddenly gripped, causing a pain in the heart. The sword had no double-sided color, staring at Jianmeng. 2 months later, Jian Holing is fighting for battle, that is, the day you take over the title of Jiangu Pavilion, I will fight you. I will let everyone know that Jianga will always be Jianga of Jianga. www.mtlnovel.com. It is my father's Jianga, it is my Jianga, no one, no matter who it is, will never get involved. Whoever just touched my finger, I chopped it. Blood slowly dripped down the arm along the arm, and Jian Wushuang's words were so powerful at this moment. As for the 3 killing swords, Jian Wushuang looked at the killing sword in his hand and smiled coldly, if you want it, give it to you. Jian Wushuang threw the 3 killing swords to Jian Menger, then turned and walked away. When he was about to step out of the hospital, Jian Wushuang stepped in a footstep, the light and immature words, spit out coldly. In 2 months, I will find you. Wu Jianmeng frowned slightly, staring in horror at the disappearance of Jian Wushuang, looking a bit lonely. The clenched 3-handed sword in his hand suddenly became as heavy as a pound. It's just a waist that can't even converge. You want to challenge Menger 2 months later? He still has to find a way to become a true warrior within 2 months. Jian Lan still disapproved. Xian Jianmeng's brow immediately spread out. Yes, a waist that hasn't even condensed spiritual power, will fight her in 2 months. This is a joke. P.S. The new book starts, for the time being, 3 changes a day, 12:01 a.m., and 2 chapters will be updated at 8 p.m. at the same time. The new book period will immediately erupt, and the update speed will be maintained at 4 or 5 a day. In addition, I3 works such as I Am a Rebirth have been completed normally, and the character and reputation are guaranteed. The guarantee is never changed, never delayed, never too jailed, and never bad. At the same time, the number of words at the end of this book will be in more than 4 million words, please rest assured to read and follow. Legend of Swordsman Chapter 5, Practice Room. Wu Jianwushuang returned to the courtyard where he lived alone and locked himself. Jiang Menger, aha. Jian Wushuang laughed at himself, remembering the twilight of the past 4 years he and Jian Menger had walked together, the once countless beauty, but at this moment, it all turned into the tingling caused him a lot of heartache. Weak. Yes, she's right, after all, I'm too weak. If I am strong enough to be stronger and better than this sword dreamer, then this sword dreamer would never dare to say such a thing in front of me. With me pressed, this sword dreamer has no hope at all. Take charge of the sword court. Strength. Jian Wu's eyes were cold. No one knows how dramatically his mind has changed in just 1 day. Jianga, no outsider is allowed to get involved, even if it is only for a day. 2 months later, before Jianmeng officially takes over the title of Jianga Pavilion, I must defeat her honestly. 2 months. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands. Maybe for others, in just 2 months, it is simply a luxury to rise from a warrior who has just gathered spiritual power to a level that is enough to rival Jianmeng. It is impossible, but it's impossible. It's different. After all, what he cultivates is against the sky, and the tactics of the heavens make good. Is against the sky, and acts against the sky. Jianjianhu Mansion, located in Bahui County, Tianzhong Province in the Tianzong Dynasty, is one of the largest forces in Bahui County, and has always been dominated by Kendo. There are 2 major factions in Jianuhu House, Jianga and Zuwutang. The 2 major factions have been fighting in the dark, and Jianga has always had the absolute upper hand before, but since the disappearance of Jianga's owner Jian Nantian 4 years ago, Jianga lost its pillar and its overall strength plummeted. The right to speak has also been greatly reduced. In the past 4 years, both Jianga and Zuwutang have an absolute disadvantage whether they are fighting on the surface or in the secret. Just yesterday, even the position of Jianga Pavilion was beaten by Shui Wutang's sword. Menger was taken away. Sword Pavilion. I was dressed in white and was carrying a sword pairing an ordinary long sword. I walked to the door of Jianga and looked at the 2 big characters on the top of the bronze Jianga, but my mood was extremely complicated. Hesitated for a moment, the sword unparalleled stepped into the sword pavilion. When Jian Wushuang appeared in Jianga, a large number of disciples who were practicing swordsmanship in Jianga couldn't help looking at them. That's Jian Wushuang. It's him, this traitor. He taught many of the first-class swordsmanship in Jianga to the people in Zuwutang. How dare he come to Jianga? Hey, you can't blame him. After all, he is also deceived and used, and Jian Menger is in charge of Jianga. It is actually him who is the most painful, so let's say less, he is not easy. There are many whispering voices in the Jianjian pavilion, and a lot of compassion on Jian Wushuang's eyes. The news that Xian Jianmeng was about to take charge of Jianghe has already spread throughout Jianhou Mansion, and the news that Jianmeng had mastered the 18 first-class sword skills of Jianghe to Deshang naturally also spread. These first-class swordsmanships of Jianjian Pavilion have always been rarely circulated. Even the most core disciples can only practice one or two. How did Jianmeng understand these 18 first-class swordsmanships at the same time? The answer naturally comes out, and it must be taught by the sword unparalleled. Because in the entire Jianghe, there is only Jian Wushuang. Because of his father's relationship, he has practiced sword art since he was a child. The 18 first-class sword arts of Jianghe have been taught by his father. There was a lot of discussion in the Jianghe pavilion, and Jian Wushuang's face was indifferent, without any pause in his pace, and he walked directly into the inner hall of the Jianghe. In the inner hall, a gray-haired old man with silver hair was turning over a thread-bound book, but when he saw Jian Wushuang coming in, the old man in the gray robe shuddered slightly. "Less, the master of the cabinet?" The old man in gray robe was a bit unnatural. "Hong Lao." Jian Wushuang showed humility, his gaze was with a hint of guilt. Over the years, these old men of Jianghe have been devoting their efforts to Jianghe. However, because of his ignorance, the owner of Jianghe changed hands, and they were still in charge of the people in Zuwutang. Jian Wushuang naturally felt guilty. "Actually, you can't blame you. You are too young to have any thoughts and it is normal to be used. Some of my elders in Jianghe did not blame you." Hong Lao saw what Jian had in his eyes. "Shame, shake your head. If you really want to blame, you can only blame that Jian Lan and Jian Menger. The means is too disgraceful, especially that Jian Menger. I've seen her a few times before, but I didn't expect her to be hidden so deep. She has such a great mind at a young age. I am afraid that her future achievements will be of equal importance. It is not too bad that Jianghe fell into her hands. Jianghe can only be controlled by the disciple of Jianghe. Jian Wushuang is extremely firm." Wu Hong was old, and shook his head helplessly. In the bottom of his heart, he is also 10,000 unwilling to let Jianmeng take charge of the Jianghe, but now that things have happened, what can he do? Just comfort yourself. "Lao Hong, I want to go to the human-level training room," Jian Wushuang suddenly solemnly said. "Human-level training room?" Hong old surprised. Class Practice Room. www.ntlnovel.com is the unique practice secret room in Jianghe. In addition to human-level practice rooms, there are prefecture-level practice rooms and sky-level practice rooms. These three practice rooms have some promoting effects on cultivation, but because of some defects, few disciples will come to practice on weekdays. Indoor practice. The sword is unparalleled, and even the spiritual power is not condensed out. What to do in the cultivation room? Although confused, Mr. Hong nodded, "Come with me." Soon afterwards, Lao Hong took Jian Wushuang to a secret room. "Master Xiao, 4 years ago you also entered this human-level practice room to practice. You also know the environment here, so don't force it. If you can't handle it, come out quickly," Hong Lao urged. "I will have a measure." Jian Wushuang nodded, and then stepped directly into the back room. Simple room, there is no decoration. As soon as you step into the room, there is a terrible force oppressed immediately, making Jian Wushuang feel like he is in a quagmire. This force is the unique gravity of the human-level practice room. This gravity is extremely tyrannical. Under this gravity, people's every move in the dense room will be several times more difficult. Even if they want to stand, they must have to rely on spiritual power to forcibly resist this gravity, but in this way, the consumption of spiritual power will be very amazing. Under normal circumstances, an ordinary warrior with a heavy spiritual level in this human-level practice room, even if only standing, can spend up to half a cup of tea on his spiritual power. If he is practicing in a human-level practice room, sword art, the speed of that spiritual power consumption will be more exaggerated. Let's start. The sword has no double-sided color, and the sword behind it has been sheathed. P.S. New book just opened, all kinds of requests. Legend of Swordsman Chapter 6, Jian Lin. Ha! The sword light dances, these sword lights, fast and slow, suddenly bright and dark, sometimes all the power in one point, sometimes it is the power scattered on each ray of sword. This is one of the first-class swordsmanship of Jianhufu Haoyu sword art. In this human-level practice room, Jian Wushuang began to practice swordsmanship, and under the force of that gravitational force, the spiritual power in his body was also consumed at an incredible rate. It was just a moment of effort, and even Jian Wushuang had no time to practice this Haoyu's sword skill again, and he found that his spiritual power had been squeezed clean. Without hesitation, Jian Wushuang quickly took back the long sword and walked to the right corner of the secret room. There was a yellow futon on this corner. This futon was specially used to restore spiritual power. On this futon, the spiritual power was restored, and not affected by that gravity. Sitting on a futon, Jian Wushuang began to run Datian Shohua, seeing a steady stream of spiritual power coming in from all directions, and finally gathered in Dantian through his 8 classic veins. The speed was outrageous. 25 minutes later, Jian Wushuang stood up again, and at this moment, his whole body spirit has recovered to the peak, even a little stronger than before. Like what I thought, Daishin Zaiju absorbed the spiritual power of heaven and earth much faster than ordinary cultivation methods. I don't know how many times. The speed of spiritual recovery should naturally be extremely fast, and this is indeed the case. The ordinary warrior, spiritual power is exhausted, not a few hours to restoring to reach the peak, but I only need half a quarter of an hour. Jian Wushuang's eyes flashed a hint of joy. This is another terrible aspect of Daishin Zaiju compared to other methods. Not only is cultivating fast, but the speed of spiritual recovery is also outrageous. And this recovery speed can almost be regarded as a cheating device for cultivation in this human-level cultivation room. It should be noted that the exhaustion of spiritual power and the complete recovery of it are of great help to cultivation. This is a complete cultivation cycle. Each time such a cycle is performed, even ordinary warriors, spiritual power can. There are a lot of improvements, and such inverse techniques like the sword Wushuang practice will increase the spiritual power even more. As soon as he recovered to the peak, he immediately found that his spiritual strength had improved a lot. This is also the benefit of practicing in a human-level practice room. However, for ordinary warriors, their spiritual recovery speed is too slow, and they can complete such a cycle at most twice a day, which is not very effective. Plus, in this practice room, the feeling of being depressed by the whole body and mind is extremely uncomfortable, so few disciples usually choose to come to this practice room, and occasionally some practice gets stuck in the bottleneck. The disciples who see an breakthrough will try to come to this practice room and try to rely on this gravity to force themselves to break through. Like when Jian Wushuang was unable to consolidate spiritual power 4 years ago, he also went to this human-level training room to practice once. My cultivating celestial tactics, the speed of recovery of spiritual power is incredible. Others can only complete the cultivating cycle twice a day, but I can at least complete it 20 times. In this way, my cultivating speed will be 10 times more than those ordinary practitioners. Sun Datian's alchemy practice speed is extremely fast, and in conjunction with the human-level practice room, his practice speed will be incredible. I am afraid that he will be able to step into the double world of Shinto in less than a day or two. I became a warrior a full 4 years slower than others. I have fallen so far behind, and must not continue to be left behind. Therefore, I must work harder than ordinary people. Jian Wushuang's eyes radiated his light. From this day on, he is completely silent in the cultivation of human-level training room. From the complete exhaustion of spiritual power to the restoration of the peak as a cultivation cycle, each cycle can improve his spiritual power, and he can carry out dozens of such cultivation cycles almost every day. The speed of cultivation is also 10 times or more than that of ordinary martial arts. Blinked, 10 days passed. In front of Jianjian Pavilion. Ha! The low-pitched impact sounded, and then a Jiangya disciple flew away in a horrible manner, and finally hit the ground heavily. Disciple of Jiangya, really bad. Laughing is a young man in purple clothes. This young man in purple clothes is obviously not a Jiangya disciple, but he is showing off in front of Jiangya's door. There are many Jiangya disciples around. Hearing these words, all of his inner anger couldn't occur. Don't you break through to reach the 6th state earlier than me, and the spiritual strength is a little bit thicker than me, what's the pride? The defeated Jiang disciple stood up and said rather angrily. If you lose, don't you admit it? Are the disciples in Jiang the same as yours? The young man in purple chuckled, ignoring the way around him as if eating his eyes. Huh? The young man in purple clothes moved his gaze just to see Jian Wushuang walking towards Jiang, with a playful smile on the corner of his mouth. Jian Wushuang entered the Jiang practice as usual, but just came to the front of the Jiang door. Isn't this the sword's main sword unparalleled? Suddenly from the side with a hint of mockery. Jian's unparalleled pace paused, looking up at the Zi youth, his eyes narrowed. He was a bit impressed by this young man in purple clothing, knowing that the latter's name was Jian Lin, a better disciple in Shui Wu Tang. Most importantly, this Jian Lin has always been interesting to Jian Menger, always thinking about the way to please Jian Meng. But unfortunately, for the 18 first-class swordsmanships of Jiang, Jian Meng has been with Jian Wushuang for the past 4 years, which makes Jian Lin very jealous and hateful against Jian Wushuang in her heart. However, because of the relationship between Jian Lan and Jian Menger before, Jian Lin could not find the opportunity to deal with Jian Wushuang, but now, everything has become different. A sword in hand, the world is unparalleled, the name is a good name, but this name is really bad for you. Jian Lin stood in front of Jian Wushuang, and he was not jealous. Not only that, I still want to play the idea of Menger. Toad really wants to eat swan meat. www.mtlnovel.com. You do and urinate and take pictures, just because of this waste that you see and even condense spiritual power. Will it really fancy you? Jian Wushuang glanced at Jian Lin and did not get angry, but instead turned his mouth up and sneered, You are right, how can a person like me be worthy of the sword dream? So, I let you. Let me. Jian Lin first stunned, but followed by anger, Damn, I need you to make such waste. Wu Jianshou smiled coldly, too lazy to say any more, turned and continued to walk towards the Jiang. Waste, stop me. Jian Lin exploded. Jian Wushuang didn't care at all, and his pace didn't stop. Asshole, how dare you ignore me? Jian Lin twisted his face, screamed, and then slammed his body, slapped directly on the back of Jian Wushuang. I noticed the strong wind coming from behind. Jian Wu's eyes were cold, and he turned sharply. He already clenched his right hand into a fist, and suddenly he exerted his strength. Go! Jian Wushuang issued a burst of drink, and the sound broke out simultaneously with the power on the arm, colliding with the front of Jian Lin's palm. Boom! Jianwu's double body shape shivered and took a few steps back, and that Jian Lin was forced to take a step back. Although he only stepped back, he let Jian Lin completely hold back. How is it possible? Jian Lin stared at Xiang Wushuang with wide eyes. In the first palm, he didn't use too much force because he didn't dare to strike two heavy hands, but even then, it was not possible for an ordinary person to easily pick him up, not to mention that Jian Wushuang even forced him back. Triple Realm, at least he must be the Triple Realm of Spiritual Tao, or even the peak of Triple Realm. Jian Lin horrified. Legend of Swordsman Chapter 7, Wishful Thinking. In addition to Jian Wushuang and Jian Lin, there were also a large number of disciples in front of the Jiang pavilion. They all saw the scene just now, and all of them were a little dazed. Surely forced Jian Lin back. How is this possible? Jian Lin is the peak of the sixfold realm of Ling Dao. Even though he didn't use all his strength just now, he is not an ordinary person to take over, let alone this sword. Lin has been forced back. Triple Realm, self-cultivation of the Triple Realm of Ling Dao. This sword is unparalleled, and has condensed spiritual power to become a warrior. And already has the cultivation of the Triple Realm of the spiritual path. I was shocked, these Jiang disciples were shocked. It should be noted that, just 10 days ago, Jian Wushuang did not condense the spiritual power, but now in only 10 days, he not only condensed the spiritual power, but also achieved the cultivation of the Triple Realm of the spiritual path. In 10 days, from becoming a warrior, making continuous breakthroughs to reach the Triple Realm of spirituality. What is this concept? They don't know that Jian Wushuang, who cultivates the tactics of Daishan Huawa, cannot see him from the perspective of ordinary people. He is against cultivation, so he is going against the sky. 10 days ago, although he had just gathered his spiritual power, the cultivation speed of Datian's alchemy was faster than that of ordinary people. What's more important was that he still worked madly in the human-level cultivation room, where he practiced and practiced without sword. One day, it can be worth dozens of days for ordinary people to practice. After 10 days, he directly broke from Shinto's heavy heaven and reached Shinto's triple heaven. Of course, now it is only just breaking through to reach the triple sky. As for Jianlin, he thinks that he is the peak of the triple path of the spiritual path. Boy, I admit that it was I who despised you. I didn't expect you to have a day of spiritual power, but that's okay, it's just the triple realm of spiritual Taoism. In front of me, it's still a waste. Wu Shuang, the thick spiritual power of the palms of his hands surged up, obviously this sword Lin was out of full force. Wu Jian's eyes and pupils shrank, and the cultivation of the peak of the sixfold realm of spirit road, no matter what, he could not resist now. At this time. What are you doing? A low drink sounded, and then Lao Hong, in a grey robe, came out of the sword court. Hong Lao. Many surrounding Jianya disciples quickly saluted. When Jianlin saw the person, his face changed immediately, and the powerful spirit breath that had just risen on his body immediately converged. At the same time, he shouted to the pedestrian, Hong Old. Ha! Hong Lao glanced at Jianlin, and coldly hummed, You're called Jianlin, right? The cultivation of the peak of the sixfold realm of spiritual Taoism is indeed good among the disciples of the same age. However, relying on Xiu Wei a little taller, just go to the front of my Jianya door to show off your strength and power, really when I can't clean you up? Dare not dare. Jianlin quickly shook his head, and cold sweat fell instantly. He is very clear that the status of Jianya in Jianhufu is plummeting, but the four elders of Jianya are all strong men at the level of the sea, each of them is the pillar of Hufu, especially the old man in front of him. Regarding strength, in today's Jianhou mansion, he is definitely ranked in the top 3. In the face of such a strong man, no matter how conceited he is not afraid to be awed. You can't get out of here yet. Hong Lao drank. Yes. Jianlin promised, and when he left, he glanced at Jian Wushuang and said with a sneer, Jian Wushuang, I heard that on the day when Menger was appointed as the new owner of Jianya, you went to her, and I also bluntly say that after 2 months, that is, the annual battle of swordsman orders, we should challenge her. Most of the people around they all just heard this, and looked at Jian Wushuang for a while. 2 months later, Jian Wushuang will challenge Jian Meng. What a joke. There are many stupid and arrogant people in this world, but those who are stupid and arrogant to you are the first time I have seen you. You have a triple spiritual path. You have to defeat Fa Hua Hai in 2 months. Deshang's dream? Laugh at me. Jianlin left, but his unscrupulous smirk resounded in front of the Jianya door. Qi Jian Wushuang stood in place, looking indifferent, and countless eyes around him looked at him. These eyes were full of sighs, many of which were just like Jianlin, full of ridicule and disdain. Even Lao Hong looked at Jian Wushuang quite complexly. After 2 months, challenged Jian Meng. You are relying on Sword Wushuang's cultivation of the triple realm of this spiritual Tao. These disciples believe that Jian Wushuang is delusional. After Jianlin left, Hong Lao winked at Jian Wushuang, and the two immediately came to the inner hall of Jianya. Congratulations to you, Master Xiao. After 4 years of hard work, you have finally become a real warrior. Lao Hong smiled first. Everything Hong Lao that just happened outside the Jian Gu was in his eyes, and naturally saw Jian Wushuang. The scene of forcing Jianlin back. Well, but just being a warrior is not enough. Jian Wushuang said lowly. Lao Hong Lao solemnly looked at Jian Wushuang and asked, Master of Shaoga, Jian Holing is in a battle. Are you really going to fight that sword Menger? Yes, this battle is inevitable. Jian Wushuang firmly said. Yen Wen, Hong Lao shook his head secretly. Master Xiao, you should know that the more warriors practice, the harder it is to break through each level, and the longer it takes, just 2 months. As far as I know, throughout the sword in the 2 months in the government, the one who has made the greatest progress is the owner, your father. When the patron was young, it took 2 months, from the dual realm of the spiritual path, to directly reach the 6th realm of the spiritual path, and to break through 4 levels in a row. This is the most outrageous and why such a breakthrough. www.mtlnovel.com. First of all, the master of the court has a high talent for cultivation, and at the same time is supported by a large amount of elixir in Jianhou House. The most important thing is that the master of the court has spent the 2 months in the battlefield of life and death. Yes, he will participate in life and death fights almost every day. After life and death fights, his progress will be so fast. The Lord of the Pavilion is still only from the dual realm of the spiritual path, breaking through to the 6th realm of the spiritual path. Hong Lao stared at Jian Wushuang. Wu Jian's heart was not shaken at all. Of course, he knew what Hong Lao said. It took 2 months for his father to break from the dual level of the spiritual path to the 6th level of the spiritual path. This is already incredible, and what he has to do this time is even much harder. Jiang Meng has already become a great sea. I must at least reach the level of the 7th heaven of the Shinto. In this way, by virtue of the magic of Datian's creation tactics, and my sword skills, plus the secret technique of winning the sky, hope to fight with her. From Shinto 7th heaven to Shinto 7th heaven, although it is only a breakthrough of 4 levels, it is at least 10 times more difficult than the breakthrough of Lingdao 2 heavens to reach the 6th heaven of God. But I was an inverse cultivation, I was going against the sky step by step, different from the others. I can't do what others can't do, but I may not. Qi Jian Wushuang has made up his mind, and his eyes have become more fortitude. However, this scene, Hong Lao also saw it, could not help asking, I really want to try. Of course, not only to try, but 2 months later, I have to defeat her. Jian Wushuang's eyes burst into breath. Also, since that's the case, I won't say much anymore. I have something here that may help you. Hong Lao came from a jade box in his arms and opened it. There were 2 milky whites inside the jade box. Elixir. Legend of Swordsman Chapter 8, 1 Pin of Pill. This is Pei Ling Dan. Jian Wushuang was surprised for a while, but then immediately shook his head. No, the medicine is so strong, it is not ordinary Pei Ling Dan. Is this a Pei Ling Dan? Pei Ling Dan, specially used for warriors at the spiritual level, has a great auxiliary effect on the cultivation of warriors at this level. But Palandan is also divided into 2 types, one is only the most common Palandan, while the other is much rarer than Palandan, and its efficacy is 10 times stronger, with almost no impurities. A pinful of pillin that can be swallowed unscrupulously. A product of Peling Ling Dan, the best of Ping Ling Dan, extremely precious. In the market, even if there are hundreds of pills, the value is far less than 1 piece of pills. There are also many alchemists in the Danfang of Jianhou Mansion, but none of these alchemists can refining a pin of alchemy. This leads to the fact that there is no 1 pin of alchemy in Jianhou Mansion. In that case, Jianhufu can only buy it from the battlefield of life and death. Qi Jian Wushuang did not expect that there would be a pinning pill in old Hong's hands, and there were 2 more. These 2 products of Ping Ling Dan were exchanged from the battlefield of life and death for a small price. I originally planned to accept a good apprentice and give it to him, but I didn't want my disciples to have not received it. Jiangya has encountered such a big crisis, so I will give you 2 masters of Pinglingdan, and hope to help you. Hong Lao laughed. Hong Lao. Jian Wushuang looked at Hong Lao, but did not immediately reach out to take over. 1 pin of Ping Ling Dan, the effect is huge. In general, a warrior at a spiritual level must conceal for 1 month to be able to absorb all the effects of this pin of Ping Ling Dan, and you have 2 months. In time, you can completely absorb the efficacy of these 2 products of Ping Ling Dan. This will definitely help your strength, and accept it. Hong Lao said. Thank you. Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and he did not show his affection. He put down the jade box and immediately solemnly said, Hong Lao, you can rest assured, as long as there is me, Jiang'a will never fall. In 2 months, I will fight the sword howling battle, in front of the sword pavilion, in the blood wutang, in front of everyone in Jianhou Mansion. Dang Tang is defeating that sword dream. I will let everyone know that the master of the sword court can only be a disciple of sword court. After saying that, Jian Wushuang turned around and stepped into the training room again, but this time he stepped into the 3 training rooms, the prefecture-level training room. Lao Hong was standing in place, watching Jian Wushuang step into the ground-level training room. A smile slowly appeared on his face. The Lord's temper is really like the Lord's temper. Stubborn, yes, the Lord is also stubborn. But to defeat Jian Meng in 2 months, it's too difficult, almost impossible. Hong Lao secretly shook his head. On the day Jian Meng was appointed as the owner of Jianga Pavilion, he personally dealt with Jian Meng. After passing, he noticed that although Jian Meng was very young, his strength was indeed extraordinary. He must know that he had achieved Huahai's completion a long time ago, and with all his efforts, it was almost impossible for the ordinary Huahai Deshang to adhere to the 20 moves in his hands, but the sword dreamer did it. After 2 months, I hope that the young master can really create a miracle. In addition, the young master gathers spiritual power to become a warrior. This is a joyous event, and it is necessary to let the person in the Golden Dragon Palace know. The ground-level training room, the huge pressure is much greater than the human-level training room. In the training room at the prefecture level, Jian Wushuang's body power is consumed more quickly, but at the same time, Jian Wushuang is still practicing swordsmanship. The ethereal swordsmanship, such as shadows and shadows, is one of the many first-class mysteries of Jianga. In the face of everyone before, Jian Meng practiced all the 18 first-class swordsmanships of Jianga, and mastered each swordsmanship. This was also marveled at by everyone in Jianhou House. All they knew was marvel, but they forgot that the swordsman who taught her 18 first-class sword skills step by step was the real kendo evil. Qi Jianmeng is now the first kendo genius recognized by Jianhou Mansion. Even though Jianmeng himself knew it, Jian Wushuang was countless times worse than her on the talent of kendo. Like this Qingyun swordplay, which is exhibited in the sword without hands, that is the real peak, and Jianmeng's Qingyun swordplay in front of everyone, compared with the sword unparalleled, is basically like a child's trick. The practice of the sword technique accelerated the consumption of spiritual power, but Jian Wushuang had already swallowed a penny of Ling Dan. Epine Piring Dan has a huge effect. An ordinary warrior, it usually takes 1 month or even longer to swallow a Pepin Ling Dan, before it can fully absorb the efficacy of this elixir. Under the operation of Tianzhao Huajue, Epine Pirin's medicinal effect was quickly triggered. In just 1 night's work, the efficacy of Epine Pei Ling Dan was fully absorbed by Jian Wushuang. Through the medicinal effect, he broke through and reached the Shinto 4 heavens in one fell swoop. Shinto 4 heavens. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and felt the power of his body soaring. Just yesterday, he just broke through to reach the triple heaven of Shinto, but today he broke through again and entered the realm of the 4th heaven of Shinto. The reason for this is because of the great potency of Ping Ling Dan, plus the magic of heaven and nature. It takes a month or more for others to completely absorb Pelindane. It only took him 1 night to fully absorb the effect of the medicine. www.ntlnovel.com. Really amazing. Yipenpingling is so hugely effective, and I have completely absorbed it in only 1 day by virtue of Datianzo's chemical formula. If I have more Yipenpingling, wouldn't it? Thinking of this, Jian Wu's eyes could not help but slightly redden. 1 pin of pillbox, I want 1 pin of pillbox. The more, the better. Wu Jian's heart is hot. Pei Ling Dan, which is able to quickly absorb the medicinal effect, has too much effect on his cultivation, and of course he is eager to get more. It's a pity that a product of Ping Ling Dan is not so easy to obtain. Even in Jianhou Mansion, no one can make a pinful of pillin. For the entire Pahui County, I am afraid that only the battlefield of life and death can provide a large amount of pillin. Jian Wushuang secretly said. The life and death martial arts arena is a huge chamber of commerce. It has an aloof position in Pahui County. Like some materials required by Jianhou Mansion, even many elixir, if you never owned it, you bought it from the life and death martial arts. At the same time, the battlefield of life and death is even more attractive. Wu Xiangjian's father entered the battlefield of life and death at the beginning and fought for 2 months, so he was able to make great progress in those 2 months. Ping Ling Dan is expensive. I don't have the ability to buy it by myself. In this case, there is only one way to say what to say. I have to fight for it. Jian Wushuang looked at the only one in his hand. Yiping Pei Ling Dan, a look of madness on his face. Bet. The battle between Taiwan and the battle of life and death in the battlefield of life and death is so attractive because of the existence of gambling wars while fighting fierce battles. Legend of Swordsman Chapter 9, Life and Death Martial Arts Arena. Luoba Shui County, although it is only one of the 108 counties in Tianlaheng Province, but its territory is still very vast. In Bahui County, Jianhou House is the most powerful in Ming Dynasty, and it is recognized as the first force. In fact, there is another other side in Bahui County, which is more detached than Jianhou House. It has always been low-key and does not participate in the battle, so it will have the first place in the Bahui County of Jianhou House. This detached force is the battlefield of life and death. The life and death martial arts battlefield is said to be supported by the royal family of the Emperor Tianzong dynasty. There are life and death battlefields in all provinces and counties of the Tianzong dynasty. That is the giant of the entire Tianzong dynasty. The central part of the town of Hambashui County is where the battlefield of life and death is located. A white figure with a sword on his back and a mask on his face walked slowly into the battlefield of life and death. Sir, I wonder if there is anything I can do to help me in the battlefield. A waiter was in charge. I want to gamble. Jian Wushuangdo. Gamble? The waiter frowned, not surprised. The life and death martial arts arena has a wide variety of projects, including gambling in Taiwan. It is a very common one. Excuse me, your name, and your spiritual power. The waiter asked. Name, call me Nan, as for spiritual power repair. The sword flew without a movement of both hands and wrists. Lingdao Quadruple Realm. The waiter smiled slightly. Countless warriors who held an exclusive battle in the life and death martial arts arena, even warriors at the level of the Hua Hai Si, or even strong men at the level of Jin Dan may see it, and the Lingdao Quadruple Realm. Too ordinary. I wonder what Mr. Nan wants to bet on. The waiter asked. Bet on this. Jian Wushuang took the wooden box out and opened it. Pei Ling Dan. The waiter recognized the elixir in the wooden box at a glance. He didn't care about it at first, but soon his face changed. This is a piece of Ping Ling Dan. Mr. Nan, let's talk somewhere else, come with me. The waiter lowered his voice. Jian Wushuang retracted the wooden box, nodded, and followed the waiter to a secret room in the martial arts arena. After arriving in the secret room, the waiter left, and the person in charge of receiving him was already in the martial arts place, a tall deacon in a black robe. Mr. Nan, I lived and died in the battlefields of the Tianzong dynasty. This rule has been known for a long time, and it is clear to want to come. Deacon Hypo looked at Jian Wushuang. I understand, life and death gamble, life and death arrogance. Jian Wushuang nodded. So, then I will arrange a suitable opponent for you as soon as possible. As for that Pinling pill, I must now leave it to me. Deacon Hypo looked at Jian Wushuang. Yes. Jian Wushuang knew the rules of the battlefield of life and death early, without hesitation, directly gave Yiping Pei Ling Dan to the deacon of the black robe, and then asked, I want to know, if I win a round, how many can I get a piece of pillin? My life and death in the martial arts arena, in general, I lose one, and you win one game. Naturally you can only get a one-pin Pei Ling Dan, of course, as long as you are confident enough, you can choose to continue betting. Said the deacon black. One loses one. Jian Wushuang frowned and shook his head immediately. It's too slow. I don't have time to go on in this game of gambling. Are there any other special gambling games that can get me more in one go? A good piece of Perrin. Special gambling battle, yes. The black robe nodded and still smiled. If you want to get more one piece of Pelin eaten at a time, there is only one way, and that is the challenge of the higher order. In my life and death martial arts arena, the higher level gambling battles are won by losing 10. That is to say, as long as you can win the next game, you can get 10 Pei Ling Dan at one time, but the higher level challenges, it's not that easy. Of the many challenges I experienced in the battlefield of life and death, 99% ended in failure, and most of their endings were death. Is it a challenge? The sword did not sink. He is now a fourfold heaven of Shinto. If you want to challenge more, you must be a warrior in the fivefold realm of spiritual path, and still be the fivefold realm of the battle of life and death in the battlefield of life and death. Although I am only a fourfold heaven, the power of Datian fortune-making is far stronger than that of the same level, and my spiritual power burst is enough to be comparable to the ordinary spiritual master of the fourfold realm of the spiritual Taoism, although compared with the fivefold world, it is not small. But I also have a big advantage in martial arts. I have absolute confidence in my sword skills, Jian Wushuang. My sword skills should be able to make up for this level of spiritual power gap. Furthermore, I still have my own whole card. Sword Wu's eyes were all clear, and he finally made up his mind. Okay, the higher the challenge, the higher the challenge. Go and arrange it for me. A middle-aged man in a loose purple robe walked in the battlefield where he died. Supervisor. Meet the supervisor. All the deacons who passed by saw the people and bowed down, all humbly. Now there can be more exciting battles of life and death or battle between Taiwan and Taiwan in the martial arts arena. The middle-aged purple robe asked a deacon. Master, you came at the right time. Just now there will be a special battle of life and death about to begin. One of the battles of life and death is the fifth heaven of the spiritual path, and the other is just the fourth heaven of the spiritual path. It's been a short while, the deacon replied. Oh. The challenge? The man in the purple robe raised his eyebrows, nodded, and seemed to be intrigued. I'll see. In the middle of the huge martial arts stadium, there is a bluestone symbol. A crowd of spectators sitting around the symbol are attracted by this leapfrog challenge. This middle-aged man in a loose purple robe is casual in the auditorium after looking for a place, looked down to the center, where a bluestone beacon stood. There was a large crowd of spectators around the bluestone, and the atmosphere was chaotic. When a man with messy hair and dark skin stepped on the platform www.mtlnovel.com, the whole battlefield immediately began to make a noise. Gun! Gun! Countless people in the entire martial arts field cheered and howled. Then the dark-skinned man stood on the platform, holding a spear, and the pupils, the size of a copper bell, glanced around, grinned suddenly, as if the beast had exposed its white teeth and was wild. Gun Demon is a strong man who has risen in the battlefield of life and death at the near end. The cultivation of the fivefold realm of Lingdao has previously killed the opponents in the battle of life and death with the two Lingdao fivefold realms. And the method is very rough, and because of his strong marksmanship, sure unfolds like a madman, so he has the title of gunman. On the other side of the ring, Sword Wushuang, who bears a long sword and a mask, stood there calmly, with the outside eyes staring at the opponent in front of him, the wild opponent in front of him, putting a lot of pressure on him. The sword is dignified without two-sided color. He knows that this person not only has broken through to reach the fivefold realm of spirituality, but also he can win two life-to-death battles in this life-and-death martial arts battlefield, and his strength is definitely stronger. If it is not necessary, he does not want to fight with each other, let alone be born and die, but the fact is that he has no way. After all, he doesn't have much time, and because of his special identity, the swordsmanship of Jian Hufu is very easy to identify. It is impossible to continue to fight one by one in this battlefield of life and death. Then, he will be able to get a sufficient amount of Pei Ling Dan at one time. Mask, I haven't heard of you before. It seems that this is the first time I came to fight in the battlefield of life and death. I met my gunman in the first fight. Your luck is really bad. Pupil stared at Jian Wushuang, as if a ferocious beast stared at its prey. Legend of Swordsman Chapter 10, Gun Demon. In the battlefield of life and death, there are all kinds of people, and weird warriors like Jian Wushuang who don't want to show people with their masks are not without, so no one will be surprised. No more nonsense, let's do it. Jian Wushuang's voice was indifferent, the voice fell, and the spiritual power had surged. For realms of spirituality. The gun devil was stunned, and his face followed with anger. Do you dare play with me? Before the gun devil defeated two Lingdao Wujing warriors in succession, he considered himself powerful, but now he sees his opponent is only a Lingdao Tsujian, and he can't help but be furious, and this anger is the first time broke out. Dead. A spear like a dragon pierces the air in an instant, producing a harsh sound boom. The cold tip of the gun appears in front of Jian Wushuang, and the gun magic originally had a distance of dozens of meters from the foot of Jian Wushuang, and it also instantly crossed. It's fast. Jian Wushuang was surprised, but his hands were not slow. While the long sword emerged from the sheath, and instantly turned into a stern sword image. It was so fast that people couldn't catch the shadow at all, and split directly in the forward direction. At this moment, the spiritual power in his body also burst into force. The burst of power reached its extreme. Ha! There was a squeaking noise, and after the two fought together, the sword swept without arms with both hands, and the long sword tilted abruptly, like a beating ghost, drew along the gun body and cut directly to the gun devil's hands. This swordsmanship! The gunman was startled, and the slight contempt in his heart disappeared instantly. Just this simple homeopathic sword, gun demon can see how amazing swordsmanship is. Go away! The gun demon screamed, holding the two arms of the spear and slamming down, and the terrible strength instantly flew the sharpened sword edge of Jian Wushuang. He turned around and just wanted to shoot again. Your marksmanship and your figure are too awkward, be my target. Jian Wushuang's cold voice came, and at the same time there were those shadowy sword images. Quick, too fast. Kwai is not like the sword art that can be exhibited in the four realms of spiritual Taoism. Not only fast, but also one sword after another, which does not allow the gun magic to have any room to fight back. Good swordsmanship. Very scary. This sword. The whole martial arts stadium was a commotion at this moment, and a lot of exclamations sounded. In this battle, they all know that it is a higher-level challenge. A spiritual quadruple state meets a spiritual Tao 5-level realm. According to reason, there is no suspense in this battle. After all, there is no difference between the quadruple level and 5-level realms. Small, but as a result, as soon as they met, they all surprised everyone. The gun demon in the 5-fold realm of Lingdao was completely suppressed by the masked spiritual 4-fold realm. Interesting. The middle-aged man in a loose purple robe sitting in an auditorium saw a scene on the ring with his mouth slightly tilted. The little masked guy should be young, but his swordsmanship is indeed that's great. If I read correctly, the swordplay he is performing should be the deciduous swordsmanship of the sword pavilion, but it is just a more general first-class swordsmanship. Although the swordsmanship is very general, he has mastered this swordsmanship to the peak, and at the same time, each of his swords is clean and neat, and there is no trace of muddy water, which shows that he has a very high understanding of swordsmanship and a solid foundation of swordsmanship. At such an age, he has such swordsmanship. His talent in kendo is extraordinary. Compared to his swordsmanship, the man named Gun Demon has a far less skill than his swordsmanship. If it weren't for his spiritual power being better than this masked little guy, I'm afraid he would have lost. This loose purple-robed middle-aged can be born and died the director of the martial arts arena, with a high status and naturally high vision. At a glance, you can see the strength of Jian Wushuang's sword skill, and also conclude that Jian Wushuang's talent on the kendo is extraordinary. In fact, Jian Wushuang's accomplishments in swordsmanship are indeed trivial. It was because he was so confident in his swordplay that he dared to challenge him. On the ring, the battle was completely one-sided. Why? His sword, how could it be so fast? I am in the 5 realms of spirituality, and I can't keep up with his speed at all. The gun demon was shocked, but his anger followed. Ah! The sniper roared, his eyes were burning with anger, and the next moment it broke out completely. Boom! The squealing boom sounded again. The gun demon didn't even care about the sword that sword warrior drew into his arm, holding the madness for injury, and directly displayed his strongest killing trick. Look, the gunslinger has done a trick. It is 13 shots of breaking clouds. Someone exclaimed. The 13 shots of the broken cloud are 13 shots in succession, one shot is fiercer than one shot, violent, and the power is one shot better than one shot. This is also a trick for this shot to become famous. With the terrible power, the sword Wushuang couldn't help changing color, and quickly took back the sword to resist the violent gunfire that came one after another. Ha! 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 Taking a sigh of relief, the next 12 shots, Jian Wushuo's arms shook with numbness. At this time, the gun demon had accumulated all his strength to the extreme, and exhibited the 13th most powerful and fearsome gun. Come on! Go to death! The sword is also a flash of murder in www.mtlnovel.com. Icy shadow of the sword lights up, fleeting. Quick and incredible, fast cannot be described by words. I saw a trace of scarlet drifting past. The gunman's face still kept smirking, but his eyes were round and round, his eyes were full of unwillingness, but his shape fell weakly on the platform. If he looked closely, he could find the key to his throat. There is a clear sword mark. Wu Ling Tao is 5-day, and in the life and death martial arts battlefield, he has won 2 gunmen in a row, die. Qi Jian Wushuang stood beside the gunman's body, breathing heavily. It's dangerous. It's worth fighting against the martial arts in the battlefield of life and death. Every bone is extremely crazy. After being suppressed by my swordsmanship, I chose to fight directly with my life. This madness. I can't compare it. Fortunately I still have a whole card, otherwise it was me who just died. Jian Wushuang hissed. Under the ring, it was a shock. The countless spectators held their breaths and watched the scenes on the platform in disbelief. No one ever thought that the mighty gunman, who had won 2 games of life and death in a row, died, and died in the hands of a warrior in the fourfold realm of spirituality. This higher-level challenge actually turned out to be a success. The middle-aged man in the loose purple robe in the audience hall of this martial arts stadium was only a very interested look before, but now his expression has become extremely calm. Just that sword, that was, unknown swordsmanship. P.S. Thanks to the big brother of Xingzilian for 20,000 books, and for the big brother Xinil for 10,000 books, and also to all the big brothers who gave this book a support. Thank you.